Okay, guys, in this one we are going to look at Mystery Babylon. We're going to look at Revelation 17 about this woman, the harlot, riding the beast, and we're going to look at the merchandise, the merchants and the merchandise of Revelation chapter 18. Now, mind you, we're going to go through the scriptures, okay? And all we've done, we have the notes. I encourage you to get the notes. The things I'm going to tell you are very deep, okay? They're going to be well beyond the things we're going to have time for to express to you in this message. But guys, what we're doing is the work of a scribe. A scribe does combine things old and new. So what we're going to do is only look at the scriptures. We're only going to look at the things it says in Revelation 18 and compare that to other places in the scripture, okay? It's very simple what we're going to do. But we're going to expose what is going on here in Revelation with this woman. Now, let's start and let's just read a little bit, guys. On Revelation 17, one of the seven angels, which had the seven bowls, talk with me, saying, "Come hither, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters." Okay, so this is the judgment of the great whore. Let's keep this in mind as we go throughout this unveiling and releasing and decoding of the things that are listed here. Now, verse 2 says, "Whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have made drunk with the wine of her fornication. He carried me away into the spirit, into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit on a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornications. Upon her forehead was the name, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots, abominations of the earth." Now, there's more here we could read, but let's look at these particular things here. What is the significance of purple? What is the significance of red? Why is it saying gold and precious stones? Okay, well, these are some things we can see in the priestly garments, right? Well, we're going to get into that, but then in Revelation 18, it then says, "Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, the mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment is come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys her merchandise anymore." So let's remember these merchants, okay? Now, of course, what's happening is many of the things that we're going to see is what the ancients would have had in terms of this merchandise. But what does this mean for our day? Why has the Apostle John gone through all the trouble to give an inventory of the merchandise? That's what we have, okay? And let's read it. "The merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen." Okay, so those are the, we saw the gold, we saw the purple, the pearls, the fine linen, okay? These were things that we saw that she was arrayed with, right, the woman. "Fine wood, all manner of vessels of ivory, all manner of vessels of precious wood, and of brass, and of iron, and of marble, and of cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves," okay, trading of slaves, "and trading of souls of men." Oh, this is terrible. I don't know if you know about this verse, but that's exactly what is going on here. The merchants are exchanging with Mystery Babylon, and they're trading the souls of men. Then in verse 14, "The fruits of your soul lusted after are departed from you. All the things which are dainty and goodly are departed from you, and you shall find them no more at all." Okay, and then I encourage you to read more, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at the inventory of the merchandise that is this trading, this exchange going on between Mystery Babylon, between the merchants. Okay, this is very deep, guys. There's a whole lot going on. Many of you think you want to apply this to one thing. It's very deep. These are the things going on. Mystery Babylon is, facilitating something here. Okay, we learned in Zechariah chapter 5 that Babylon, okay, she was taken to Babylon, and they were going to build for her a house, okay, and it's on a base. So we're going to go through and we're going to look at, bear with us, guys, be patient, and please be patient. We're going to go through the details. Sometimes the details are tedious. We're going to go through line upon line, precept upon precept, okay, and we're going to see clearly the scriptures will interpret themselves if we remove from our mind preconceived notions of what it is that we just read. So let's take a look at our notes. All right, here are our notes, which I strongly encourage you to get and do a further study on this. For time's sake, what we have here in front of you is we have columns. This one here is, you see in red, this is the inventory we just read, the harlot's merchandise, okay? What you have here is the verses. It's really just a couple verses in Revelation 18, verses 12, 13, basically just 2 verses that list all that. Then what we have here in this column in purple is the inventory of the things that were components of the temple, Solomon's temple. These are only in a few places, guys. 1 Chronicles chapter 29, 2 Chronicles chapter 2, just a couple places. So basically what we have, guys, is we have this here in red, this here in purple. It's lining up perfectly, line upon line, precept upon precept. And we'll be able to come to a conclusion based on what the scriptures themselves will tell us. So we will go through each one and what it's saying in Revelation, how it relates to the temple that Solomon built. And the other thing is we're going to look and we're going to also find these details in the merchants of Ezekiel chapter 27. We'll find that, just about all of the inventory, the things that we see listed there, are also in Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 27 specifically, just one chapter, has all these same components. So let's first start with what we read before. Remember, we saw Revelation chapter 17, verse 4. We looked at the Mystery Babylon being clothed with gold, with precious stones, and we see we have a breastplate here, with purple and scarlet. Now, these are some of the colors of the high priest, okay? So the precious stones relate to the precious stones of the high priest. So Mystery Babylon, on a kind of spiritual, religious aspect, is a priestess, okay? And so that's what we read and how she was adorned. She was dressed in a way that would make her look spiritual, okay? So that's Revelation 17:4. We saw all those listed. Then when we get to Revelation 18, we see those same things. So for example, we have gold, we have silver, we have brass, we have iron, and precious stones, okay? So precious stones in a general sense would be the stones that went into the priest's breastplate, but they also went into the components of Solomon's temple. So in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 2, Solomon had gold and silver for the table of showbread, the menorah, the bowls, the cup, okay? And you can see here that the harlot has the golden cup in her hand, okay? The golden cup full of wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the nations are drunk with her wine, okay? And those are the cup, and the wine relates to the temple, okay? But here we can see the vessels Solomon made were of gold and of silver. So that's what the gold and silver is. Then he weighed the brass, and Solomon weighed the iron. He weighed the onyx. Then there were many stones. There were onyx stones, painted stones, precious stones that all went into the temple. And you can see that the inventory of what we're looking at is in just a couple verses. 1 Chronicles 29, verse 2, 1 Chronicles 29, 8, give us this full inventory, including marble. Okay, so it also says they traded, gold, silver, brass, iron, precious stones, marble, pearls. Okay, the merchants with the harlot. Well, there's also marble stone in the temple. So what do we have? What we have is a situation where the merchandise in the inventory of the harlot listed in Revelation is the third temple. Okay, we can clearly see the reason all these things are listed and laid out is not just buying and selling, but the nations, the merchants, are trading to build the third temple. That's what's going on. So we have all the components of the third temple that Solomon built in an inventory. There's sections to it. Okay, so you got all the gold, silver, brass. Then you go into the fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet. Okay, now you can see here these relate to the priestly garments. Priestly garments wore fine linen, purple, silk, or broidered work in crimson. We see all the same things listed in 2 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 14. Fine linen, purple, broidered work, crimson or red. Okay, again, these are all the materials for the priestly garments. That's what's being listed to us in Revelation 18. Then if we continue, we have in English, the King James says thine wood. Now, thine here relates to wood for sacrifices. Okay, so again, this inventory is not just an inventory of just buying and selling stuff, but it's an inventory to build the third temple. Thine means sacrifice. This is wood for the sacrifice in the third temple. Of course, if you have seen the altar sacrifice, you'll see they use pallet wood. Actually, I have pallet wood right here. I'm going to have to show you that later. But that, of course, is not what the scriptures say. But the wood is mentioned. Okay, the wood is mentioned in the third temple. Then it says all manner of vessels, vessels of ivory, vessels of precious wood. Okay, these are the vessels in the Lord's house. Okay, those vessels would be part of everything that you would have in the temple. Okay, and that we know that the vessels relate to people. Okay, that we as people would be vessels that God can use, right? Okay, but notice what it says here. It says ivory. Okay, ivory. Now, the word in Greek here in the book of Revelation relates ivory to like elephant. Okay, but the ivory relates to the throne. Solomon in the temple, he made a throne of ivory. Okay, so this ivory here relates to the harlot's throne. So she's counterfeiting. You see how she's counterfeiting? She's counterfeiting everything. So she's got the ivory here, and she's using the components that went into, what God did for the temple, and she's using those for herself. Okay? And then again, we got the precious vessels of precious wood, and then there's timber. And again, this is all in 2 Chronicles chapter 9, 2 Chronicles chapter 2. All right, our next section deals with the ingredients for the incense. So then in Revelation 18, verse 13, there's cinnamon, odors, ointments, and frankincense. Well, these are the components of the incense oil for the temple. So then we see the incense altar, 1 Chronicles 28, verse 18, and also chapter 9, verse 29, the incense, the spices, the ointments, the frankincense, okay? All of these, the reason these are all here is because these are the components of the third temple. Then if we continue, we have wine, oil, fine flour, wheat. Well, we saw before the golden cup. Well, the golden cup is full of wine of the wrath of our fornication, okay? And we see in Solomon's temple, he had householders, he had people that were responsible for the provision of wine, provision of oil, provision of fine flour, okay, and wheat. They were householders, like when Christ has the parable of the householders, it was to give meat, give food in due season. Okay, there's 12 householders. We have a video on that, all right? But these are, again, components and provisions for the third temple. But the fine flour and the wheat also relates to the harvest, right? So there's a harvest. The harvest is measured in Revelation. Touch not the wine, touch not the oil. And he measures the wheat and the barley. Okay? So what she's doing is she's the guy, we're in the season where we're supposed to get the unleavened bread, the harlot's leaven, out of our house, out of us, right? And this is what she does. She puts her leaven, the leaven of the Pharisees, the leaven of Herod, okay, and that's what we must purge of all this wicked Mystery Babylon religion stuff. That's why I'm doing this all for you guys, so that you will identify these spiritual principles and apply them, okay? And then our next section deals with the beast. And the beast, the woman rides a beast, remember? She rides a scarlet-covered beast, but the beasts are also related to the offerings, because it says beasts and sheep, okay? Well, this is in the temple. You would have sheep and oxen and everything for the animals that were being sacrificed in the temple. So that's what it's talking about here. Then it talks about horses and chariots. Well, Solomon had horses and chariots. Not only that, he had cities of horses and horsemen and chariots. You can see that in 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 6, okay? But there were many sheep without number, 2 Chronicles 5, 6, horses, 2 Chronicles 1, 16 and 17. And so if you take the time and you read this, it really is something. Then in verse 13, it talks about the slaves. So the merchants and the harlots trading slaves, okay? And there were also slaves that went into building the temple of Solomon. In 2 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 17 and 18, it describes the people that were like forced laborers to build a temple. That's how the temple was built, by slaves, okay? But the dreadful thing is we get to the souls of men, okay? We have the souls of men that they're trading. That's what they're doing. They're trying to take souls into the lake of fire, okay? But those souls we don't have anything in Solomon's temple that relates to the souls of men. You can see this is blank, but we can see them here. They traded the souls of men. That's in Ezekiel 27, verse 13. Then we'll look at this portion of the inventory, okay? So it also talks about fruits and delicacy and other things of how she lived, okay? So what do we have? Well, we have an inventory in the book of Revelation of the trading that's taking place, the exchange that's taking place between the merchants and Mystery Babylon. Well, what is this? This is everything that's going into the third temple. And what I want to do is I want to now show you some of the things that the Temple Institute has that relates to the things that we're looking at here. Okay, so let's take a look now at the Temple Institute's application of this inventory that's going into them building the third temple. All right, now let's look at the Temple Institute's preparations and vessels and everything for the third temple, which we can see here. And let's remember what it said. The merchandise of gold and silver and brass and iron. Okay, so this is a reenactment and some photos of their rendition of the Ark of the Covenant and the various vessels and things they've prepared. Now this is a menorah that's inside a museum with a display, table of showbread, which you clearly see in gold. So this is the gold for the temple. This is the bronze. This is a copper basin thing that the priests used to wash their feet. We have the incense altar. Remember, we saw the incense of cinnamon, odors, ointments, and frankincense. And this is when we were at the altar dedication, and they are using their incense altar. The silver goes into the trumpets. We showed you the silver trumpets and the altar dedication and the Passover celebration, and other various shovels and vessels used for the temple service. Now it says that Mystery Babylon is counterfeiting the Kodesh, Yahweh Kodesh, on the priest's breastplate, okay? And here we have the red, purple, blue. Remember, she's arrayed in fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet, and precious stones. So here's the precious stones in the priest's breastplate, okay? See the breastplate. So Mystery Babylon is counterfeiting the things that God has. The bells at the bottom. You can see the bells. and this is the other priest. So the high priest on the right, this is the other priest on the left, in the fine linen. Then the fine wood. The fine wood goes into the building of the harps and psalteries and everything for the third temple. So clearly what we're seeing in Revelation chapter 18 with the merchandise, which the inventory for the third temple. And here's a display with all the instruments, silver trumpets, harps, lyres, etc. Now we know it's Mystery Babylon because they have this idol that they have in preparation to put in the door of the temple. This is for Queen Helena, okay? And this is the thing they've described. It's I forget what they call it. I'll provide a link or something later. But this is the museum. This is the display. And in the temple, in their rendition, that's where it is. See that glowing thing? Well, that is this Queen Helena idol that they're putting in the temple. So Queen Helena, again, being mother goddess, queen of heaven type worship. And now we have the architectural layouts for the third temple and the plans. Okay, and there you see the Queen Helena thing glowing in the sun. Okay, and there's different types of 3D renditions, but here you see the same thing. She's arrayed in scarlet and fine linen and gold, and all these things you see clearly as displayed in the Temple Institute's plan for the third temple. So clearly that's what we're seeing. The nations, the merchants will come and they will provide the merchandise to go about building the third temple. That's what it's telling us in Revelation chapter 18 as it gives us this 3D example. And here, look at, watch, we got a crown going up. You climb this ladder, you get to a crown, and there it is. She's arrayed in purple and fine linen, okay? And off to the right, you can see they have some kind of conveyor system for the priest. This is not what the temple is going to look like, guys. We saw with the chamber of hewn stone for the priests that they said they were going to do this elaborate thing. Okay, now here we're in the holy place, okay? She's arrayed in crimson, all right? And we know that the son of perdition will stand in the holy place, all right? So, again, these are just things in the Temple Institute showing the showbread and the vessels. Okay, showbread there, the menorah, okay? Now, in the millennial kingdom, guys, it doesn't talk about these things. There's no gold in Ezekiel's temple. So if you study Ezekiel's temple, you'll see very clearly that's not what we're looking at. They're going to build something else. And of course, it's not going to look like this. This is just a kind of, thing to get people motivated to build a third temple, to get, the nations, all this stuff, okay? And here we're on the roof, and then we're going to make a left. We're going to climb a ladder. We're going to go on top, and that's the Holy of Holies. And, of course, they've made an Ark of the Covenant, which is not, the real thing. It's just something they're going to do and display. But we're climbing the ladder. Now we're going inside, and we're in the Holy of Holies, and there's the veil. So when it's talking about gold and crimson and how Mystery Babylon is arrayed, she's counterfeiting all these things that we can see. All right, guys, let's take a look at these merchants. Okay, in Revelation 18, you can see Revelation 18, we have the kings of the earth. The kings of the earth have committed fornication and live deliciously with her, and shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Then verse 11, the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buys her merchandise anymore. So, okay, we got these merchants that it's talking about, and then it continues here. Let's see, for in 1 hour your great riches are come to naught. The shipmaster, the ships, the sailors, and many that trade in the sea afar off, cried, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust in their heads, and weeping and moaning, alas, alas, the great city is made rich of the whole earth. Okay, so you've got all these merchants, right? Well, now let's take a look at the merchants as we can see them in Ezekiel. So Ezekiel 27 gives us the same inventory that we saw in Revelation 18 of the gold, the brass, the silver, the precious stones. And all we're doing, guys, is we're allowing the scriptures to interpret themselves. I know people have a lot of views. It's this, it's that. I'm just telling you, this is what we have in Revelation, and now this is what we have in Ezekiel 27. Ezekiel 27, we have the same thing. We have these merchants. For time's sake, I encourage you to read the whole thing. It tells you the different nations and everything else, but we have the gold, the silver, the brass, the iron, tin, precious stones, the fine linen, the blue, the purple, the broidered work, the ruby, which relates to the red, the crimson, the fir trees, the oaks, the vessels, the ivory, the cedars, the cassia, the calamos, the spices, the oil, the wine, the oil, the balm, the wheat, the rams, the goats, the lambs, the horses, the chariots, and the souls of men. Okay, that's Ezekiel 27, and this is verse 13. If you get the notes, take the time, but you can clearly see that everything in Ezekiel 27 also corresponds perfectly with everything in Revelation 18 relating to Mystery Babylon. So what is this? These are the merchants that trade. Okay? They trade. Let's take a look. Let's read a little bit about what that means. All right, here we are, Ezekiel 27. The word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Now, son of man, take a lamentation for Tyrus. Say unto Tyrus. Okay? You are situated in the entry of the seas, and the merchant of the people. So this is a Tyrus king. The borders are the midst of the seas, talking about the seas and the ships. Remember, we saw the seas and the ships. But guys, it's not one nation. There's many nations here. Fir trees from Shinar and Lebanon, and the oaks of Bashan. Remember, we saw the trees, the Asher, Chittim, Egypt, Zidon, Arvad, Gebel, Persia, Lud, Put, Arvad, Tarshish, Javel, Tuban, Meshech. Okay, these are all different nations. Dedan, which is like Oman, Syria, Judah, and the land of Israel. So this is, everybody's in on this, guys. Read this whole thing. So what they're doing is they're trading and they're exchanging. They're bringing everything on ships and everything else. It's talking about this. Damascus, Dedan, Arabia, Sheba, Reba. Okay. And these are the merchants of the sorts that they brought the clothes, the broider work, the chests, the apparel, ships. Okay, I encourage you just to read all this. So what is this, guys? This is the exchange, the trading of the nations. Okay, it's a very deep concept, but this is how there's going to be an actual temple because of all the efforts that are going into all these things to bring this about. It's going to happen. Okay? Okay, so what have we learned? Well, we've learned that when we just compare the scriptures with the scriptures will give their own interpretation. That way we're not falling into any error, making in our own private interpretation of what we might think. So, what do we have? We have this list of inventory of Mystery Babylon in the merchants. Well, what is it? We know it's all the components into the third temple, into the priestly garments, into the precious stones, into the offerings, the animals, the wood. Remember I said the wood? Here's the pallets I was telling you about where I am right now. They offered the pallets on the altar dedication. The people were like, why are you using pallet wood? You're supposed to use a certain type of wood, which you are. So certainly, guys, they're not going to do everything proper. They're just going to do everything it can get to this temple. But we've learned that there's these merchants, okay? And I encourage you to really take this as a study and look into the things that we're talking about because they are deep, and I'm doing this and sharing this with you so that you get victory over the beast. You get victory over Mystery Babylon and Jezebel and all the harlots, okay? You're going to have to get victory over them. If you don't know how to get victory, they're probably influencing you, okay? And I got lots of stuff on this, guys, to show you the woman clothed with the sun at Revelation 12 and the harlot. We have a whole playlist called Wisdom versus Zana. Okay, that's wisdom, the true wisdom in the book of Proverbs, who is Revelation 12. And That's a real person. But the harlot comes in and gets you to worship the harlot, the queen of heaven. Okay? And that's, the golden calf that we were warned about in the Exodus. So guys, thanks for watching. Please, if you're interested in these concepts of Mystery Babylon and the harlot and getting victory, please watch the Wisdom versus the Harlot playlist. As well, this is a whole series on the third temple. So we can clearly see the third temple is being built in Revelation 18. All those components are in the third temple. So thanks for watching. And as I always say, watch and pray they be counted worthy to escape all these things and stand before the Son of Man.